Hello and welcome to the shop. A few months ago, I was up in Indianapolis at the Woodworking show, and I picked up 4 pin kits. They're called Palisades. Now, I've never heard of them before, but Lynn Lacey, he went to the show with me, got online and determined that they use the same bushings as the Wall Street kit from Woodcraft, and they also use a 27th 64th inch bit. Now, at the show, they simply had the kits for sale. No bits, no bushings. So we took a little side trip over to the Indianapolis Woodcraft, and I was able to find a set of Wall Street bushings and the proper size drill bit. Now, the year before, not this year, but 2016, I've literally been sitting on this for a year, I purchased this pin blank. I purchased it from Arizona Silhouettes. I believe that's Barry Gross's company. And I bought it with my baby girl in mind. I wanted to make her a special pin, and the blank spoke to me. It's got little hearts on it. I really think she's gonna like it. That's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna take this blank I've been setting on for a year, and I'm gonna make a special pin for my little girl. When I mark an acrylic tube to be turned into a pin, I always like to leave a little extra on either end of the tube. Now, there's still enough here if I need to make a second pin. And the reason why I like to leave a little bit of extra is because when you're drilling this out, every now and then you'll get a little blowout at the end. If you've got the extra material, you can always pull the tube back, and then that blowout becomes a non-issue. I didn't have my vise tightened down enough, and it let the blank pull up onto the drill bit. Nothing was hurt, but I did want to stop at this point anyway. When I get close to the end of the blank, this is when I start just very lightly tapping at the end of the blank. I don't want to force the bit through because that's going to give you the maximum chip out. Make sure everything is lined back up. I've got the vise tightened. Now we're just going to tap it until we're able to cut through the bottom of the blank. We're through. I felt it go through the bottom of the blank, and I did not feel like it broke out, and I did a nice job. Look at that. Very little chip out right there. Now we've got plenty of excess on both sides of the tube. That'll be a non-issue, and this should glue right up, no problem. My tube was very shiny to start with, and you'll notice that I've roughed it up with a little sandpaper. Another thing you always want to do before you glue a tube, always test fit the tube. I've had blanks before where you'll start to put the tube in, it's got glue on it, it'll get halfway in, and it'll stop because there's some type of an occlusion or a restriction in there that won't let the blank go all the way into the tube. So I like to test that first. Feel like everything is good. I'm going to use a little medium CA glue. Put plenty of it on the blank. I'm sorry, on the tube. As we insert it into the end of the tube, I just want to rotate it a little bit to make sure I smear that glue around, and then I'm just going to tap it just below the surface. And you'll notice it's not too far below the surface, but in case there are any little chips there from where the drill bit started, this is the end I begin drilling on. This is where I finished. So I'm just below the surface. I'll be able to trim that nice and flush. And this end here, you'll see I've got a lot of extra material. That won't be a problem. I'll be able to take that to my sander and sand it off. You could shoot this with a little bit of activator to speed the process, but I have time, so I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to let this CA dry naturally because I think it'll be much better in the long run, the tube holding inside of the acrylic blank. I'm more likely to use activator on wood blanks than I am on acrylic, and that's just a personal preference. The glue is fully cured on my blank, and because we had a really good drilling experience and didn't have any blowout, you can see that little chip right there is all we had. all of the additional length that I left on the tube is still there. So I've made a mark, and we're going to run over to the bandsaw real quick, and I'm going to cut this a little closer to the length of the tube. And then we'll come back and use the belt sander to clean it up. With the excess material removed, I had posted a picture of this blank out on Instagram, and a number of people responded saying these blanks are super brittle. So what I'm going to do, instead of using my drill press with a barrel trimmer, I'm going to go ahead and use this little jig, and I'm going to run this blank back and forth on my belt sander until I get it down level with the tube. I took my time and I made several light passes on the belt, and as you can see, I've got the tube right at the end of the blank, so I'm very happy with that. The next thing I want to do, because I was told that this blank is very brittle, I've decided to go ahead and use the belt sander to take the 90-degree edges off. I'm just going to round everything over before we take it to the lathe. I feel like that's really going to help. Another thing I want to do is I want to make sure my tools are razor sharp. And the way that I do this is I'll usually take a black Sharpie and I'll draw on the bevel side of my tool. And that allows me to line the tool up. And when you see a straight line down the tool, you know that you've got the proper angle. And now we're going to go ahead and start the grinder up and put a nice edge on this roughing gouge. Got a really nice edge on there, and it is sharp. So we're ready now to start turning. With my blank pre-rounded and my tools sharpened, it's time to turn. All I can do is say thank you to everyone who chimed in and gave me information about this blank. I think pre-rounding the edges and making sure my tool was razor sharp made all the difference in the world. This blank feels amazing. There's a little bit of waviness in it, and I think that's from going from the hards to the white material. But once I pull the micromesh out and I sand this down, this thing is going to be like a piece of glass. I am just tickled with how this blank turned out. So let me get the lathe, get everything moved out of the way, get the micromesh, and let's see if we can smooth this blank out. I have a bad habit of calling this micromesh when actually what it is I'm using is the acrylic and Corian finishing kit from Penn State. It is part number PFK-1. What the kit consists of is 3 pads, and they are 2-sided, and they're color coded. So you want to start out with yellow, move to light green, then on to orange, purple, light blue, and finish up with the gray. For me, I find that wetting these pads thoroughly prior to sanding the blank with them yields the best results. We'll start out with the yellow. And I'm just going to work the pad back and forth, building a slurry on the pad. And you can kind of see it starting to build up. I'm going to get a little more water on there. I don't think you can use too much water because the water is going to stop you from building too much heat. See that slurry? That's what you're looking for. You want to build that on the pad, and that's how you know the pad is working. With this particular finishing kit, I probably spend more time with the yellow pad and the gray pad than I do with any other pads. And the yellow pad really is, and you would not believe how amazingly smooth that blank is. It just takes all the ridges right out of the blank. I mean, take a look at that. Isn't it beautiful? I've got a really nice fit against my bushings at both ends. I'm just going to go ahead now and move through the rest of the pads. My goal is to build that slurry on each pad as I use it. As you work your way down through the pads, it'll become more and more difficult to actually build a slurry. This blue pad, I may get a little bit, it won't be much. And the gray, I have yet to get a slurry built up on the gray. You've got to be careful because you can actually sand so hard with the gray that you literally take some of the surface off of the pad. You can see I got a little bit of a slurry, not much. We're ready to go ahead and switch out to the gray pad. This is the final pad. It's a 12,000 grit, and what it's going to do is buff all the super fine scratches out of the blank and give it a nice polished finish. And you can just look at the blank and see how it shines. I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous. And that's just with the Micromesh. We haven't even used the polish yet. The last step is to polish the blank, and I'm going to use a little Meguiar's Plastex. Now, this is usually for automobile headlights, and you can pick it up at any auto parts store. I know this is starting to sound like a commercial. I've talked about Plastex Polish by Meguiar's, and I've talked about the PSI pads, and I've talked about the Palisades pin kit. I want you to know that this is not a sponsored video. These are not my sponsors. They have not given me any free product. This material and these products were all paid for out of my pocket. I'm just showing you what I use, and I just wanted to make that disclaimer because this is not a commercial. I get often asked, what do you use? So I'm trying to share that information with you now. I just get a pea-sized bead of polish, lightly touch the blank just to make sure I get polish all over it, and apply some pressure to build a little heat. This will take out scratches that are so fine that we won't even be able to see them with our eyes. I like to really work the polish in, and when I feel it's sufficiently worked in, I get a clean rag and buff. See the shine starting to show through, how you can see that this is the reflection of the light above my lathe. And that's just amazing. I love how it looks, and it feels perfect. You feel none of the tool marks in the blank. Those pads just basically removed every single tool mark from that blank, and it's like a sheet of glass from one end to the other. Let's get it off the lathe and get it pressed into a kit. This pin appears to be relatively simple to assemble. We start by putting the spring on the end of the refill, sliding the refill into the transmission, and then the transmission threads into the nib of the pin. Really smooth operation for the ink. I'll lay that down. Now we're going to press the cap and clip assembly into the back of our blank. So let's find a good spot to press it. I really think I'm going to press it right about here. And the reason I chose that is there were a couple of small hearts there, and I want to kind of cover one of them up to sort of break it up. That's just a personal preference. We'll put it into our press. Ooh, make sure everything is lined up. Don't jam it in there sideways. Get it started. Put a little bit of cardboard here to protect the end of the blank. Press it together. Got a beautiful fit on the back of that pin, just a beautiful fit with the cap. Now the nib assembly with the transmission slides right into the front half of the pin. And there we have it. And that makes a absolutely gorgeous pin. And look at the fit we have. It's perfect. Very happy with this pen. Got my pen finished. I'm extremely happy with how it turned out. I think it's beautiful. I need to present it, and this pen is going to be presented to my daughter. Now, you might remember if you've watched many of my videos, a video or two back, I presented a Harry Potter themed pen to my son, and it was a total surprise. We're going to do the same thing to my daughter. One thing that she likes is when I do giveaways on the channel, I call her out and I let her draw a name out of the hat or the bucket. So I've got this bucket. Inside this bucket, we're just going to put the pen. I'm going to bring her out and I'm going to tell her that she's going to help me do a giveaway. We're going to give a pen away to one very special person. I'm going to ask her to pull a name out of the bucket. She's going to pull a pen out and find out that she is a special person receiving that pen. So let me go see if I can get her out in the garage. Hello everybody and welcome to the shop. I'm here today with my daughter Grayson and she's going to give me a hand. We're going to draw the name of one lucky person who's going to receive the pen that I just got done making. Are you ready, sis?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Now I want you to close your eyes and I want you to reach into the bucket and I want you to draw out, the name.
What the heck?
I guess you're the lucky recipient of a new pen.
Thank you.
You're welcome, baby girl. I pulled a little trick on you, huh? Do you like it?
Yes, I do.
All right, I'm glad you like it.
I'm like, there's no names in there.
Well, we didn't have, nobody else signed up for the drawing, so I figured I would just give it to you.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. I love you, baby.
I love you too.
All right. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome. I didn't know. I was like,
That was a whole lot of fun. My daughter really enjoyed it. My wife was standing behind the camera. She knew what I was going to do, but my daughter had absolutely no idea. So she was like, I'm feeling around in the bucket and there weren't any names in there. I was like, what the heck? The only thing I'm sorry of is I kind of got the bucket in her face. I wished I would have had it farther to the side so you could have seen more of her reaction, but I think you probably saw enough to where you could tell she loved the pen. So, final thoughts on that pen. I thought that it was going to be way more brittle than it was. And possibly I didn't have issues because of the rounding of the blank, pre-rounding of the blank, and the very, very sharp tool. But I have to say, I had no issue with the blank. I enjoyed turning it. I still have the other half of that blank, which in the future I will turn into a pen for someone else. But with that being said, I'd like to thank you for joining me for this project. I really had a great time doing it. You know, I love when I can do something for one of my kids. It just makes me feel really good. And it's something that, you know, she'll hang on to because her daddy made it for her. So for her, it's a big deal. But I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. You guys come back and see me again real soon. Take care and have a great evening.